My bully had been biting me and punching me, hence the bruises. They ended up calling my parents, who then called the school. My bully ended up having to change bus routes, and I also got in trouble, but just for lying. They reviewed the camera footage and saw everything but the part I'd lied about, obviously. Thing is though, I didn't feel remorse until I got into trouble myself. Only then did I feel bad. I feel like I could have handled it better, but hey, not bad for a 6-year-old, right? Jumping down to the comments on this one, there was a pretty good comment on there from a school bus driver that I'd like to share with you. It's from a user called Maniacal Gleam. It says, "I'm a school bus driver. I'm sorry this happened. When I put kids in the front seat for any bullying behavior, I make them sit alone so they don't have targets. The seat just to the right of the driver is the best place for bullies. I use the seat behind me for kids who have issues that require front seat access and aren't the kids harming others. The driver failed you. The first thing I do when told about bullies is check my cameras, then assign appropriate consequences. That should have happened for you, and you should never have been ignored and forced to try and deal with it on your own." Now, OP replied to this one as well. It says, "I don't blame him. He was my first bus driver. I had 3, and he was up there in age and nearing retirement. We had a very rowdy group of students, and he likely couldn't hear me from all the other yelling. I was a pipsqueak too, so I don't hold him accountable for it." Okay, so I need to chime in on that one because I was the little guy in school myself, and I got picked on quite a bit. If you're at the front of the bus, let's be honest, there's no way that driver wouldn't have heard you screaming if you had somebody sitting on you. I honestly think if this was something that was going on and on, it's just that the bus driver didn't want to deal with it. Fortunately, these days when you ride a school bus, they have cameras. But not only do they have cameras, but most of the kids on the bus have cell phones with cameras as well. This next story comes to us from Tubis61. Dealing with an entitled neighbor. Let's jump right in. Just flipping through a few stories and reading about entitled drivers getting their just desserts. This made me think back to my days as a paramedic. We got a call to a house where there was a bariatric patient who had fallen. The patient was morbidly obese and weighed around 30 stone, 420 pounds. This story isn't really about them though. There are many reasons people get to this size, and I've never judged, only helped. No, the problem here was a really arrogant neighbor we had come across before, and boy was this chap a judgmental moron. Our patient had a car and had a disabled parking permit. They also had a council designated disabled parking spot outside their home, which the neighbor kept parking in. There had been a number of letters from the council regarding this, and a number of parking fines just served to annoy this chap even more. On the day of the story, I took the call that the patient had fallen, and we went to the house. Sure enough, the neighbor was not only parked in the disabled spot, but had parked a second car blocking access to the patient's driveway. I assessed the patient and suspected they had a broken hip, so needed to go in. I sent my colleague round to the neighbor to ask them to move the cars, and when I came back, I was told the neighbor had just told my colleague to do one. No problem, time to get the message home. I radioed through to our control center and asked for the fire service and police. We needed the fire service to help lift the guy, and the police to do a little parking control. The fire service were the first to arrive, and I spoke to the crew commander and let them know what the situation was. A fireman went to the house to ask the neighbor to move the car, and was told the same as my colleague. The message was relayed back, and the watch commander just asked me one question: is the patient's life at risk? I knew exactly where this was going, and it was time our thoughtless neighbor got the message. My answer was, yes, there is equipment I need to get into the house, and the driveway is blocked, preventing me doing so. The watch commander told the fire truck driver to move those vehicles. It was really satisfying to see both vehicles being pushed down the road by the fire service, and the look on the neighbor's face as he came out spitting and screaming was well worth seeing. His complaints to the police fell on deaf ears. They were well aware of his history of obstruction, and my clinical assessment that the patient's life was in danger was more than enough justification for the vehicles to be moved. I doubt it made our patient's life any easier, and sadly they died a few months later without leaving the hospital, but it really did bring a smile to their face as we wheeled them out. So one thing I want to point out on this one that might be different in various places around the world, but I know it's how it works here, is that if the fire department comes out and they're blocked by somebody and they have to use their equipment to get that person's vehicle out of the way, they're actually going to send a bill to that person later for the damage done to their truck because it was their fault, not the firefighter's fault. That is amazing. Now, a lot of the comments underneath this story mentioned that these people would have learned a lesson. Well, I don't think they actually learned a lesson. They might have been taught a lesson, but I don't think they learned it because not everybody out there has the capability or wants to learn, especially the kind of people we're dealing with in this story. This next story comes to us from Historical Day 9518. Want to have your cake and eat it too? Two-timing baby daddy gets his just desserts. Let's jump right in. For context, years ago, I, 20 female, and the father of my first two children, 26 male, were going through a rough time in our relationship. He was working night shift as a janitor in a nursing home, while I was going to college for nursing during the day. We had a 1-year-old, and I had just given birth to our son 3 months earlier. There was a woman that he worked with that I had gotten to know pretty well when I would bring him his lunches. We were friends, or so I thought. He was supposed to be waxing floors at the night when no one was up and about. Just so happened my cousin ran into him and her having drinks at a local bar on one of the nights that he was supposed to be working. Cue massive fight. Got off early, just friends, blah blah blah, won't happen again. About a month later comes the talk. We have been fighting too much. Let's keep this amicable for the kids and stay friends. Mind you, the house was mine. I paid the bills with grants and scholarships I earned through school. The car he drove was mine too. I would be nice and allow him to stay till he got something figured out, still take my car to work. I still fed him all that good nonsense. Then he starts being loving and we continue a physical relationship. I happen to be feeding our son one morning while he still sleeps and his phone goes off. I know. Don't look for it, you don't want to know, right? Turns out, he's been carrying on a relationship with the other woman the whole time he's been with me. It would have been fine if that's what he wanted, if he wasn't doing the same with me at the same time. Cue petty revenge. I crawled back into bed with him naked, and he snuggled up like he always does. I took pictures from his phone, nice and graphic ones. I sent them to her from his phone, along with a very nice, in my opinion, worded message explaining everything that he had been up to and into. Then I got dressed to the wonderful pings from his phone and continued about my day packing his things. He woke a few hours later and went for his phone first thing. I happened to come into the room as he's trying to call her, and when he turns to look at me, I can see all the blood rush from his face. He can't even mount a defense as I tell him all about the conversation me and his new girlfriend have had, along with some photos. All his things are now out on the porch boxed up. I tell him he no longer lives in my house and to leave. He starts to blubber about where will he go, so I told him that he'd better call his girlfriend to come pick him up and live with her, because he sure as hell isn't using my vehicle anymore, and that sounds like his problem. And I shut the door on him. I had been with this man-child for 6 years, given my body, heart, and sanity to this man. Heck, I was even willing to still let him live there, not paying bills, eat there, and drive my car for him to be sleeping with both of us at the same time. Was it petty? Hell yeah, but it was deserved. This story turned completely when OP mentioned at the end that they'd been with this guy for 6 years. At the beginning they said they were 20 and he was 26. So if they've been together for 6 years, that means she was 14 and he was 20. Whoa, that's a big no right there. OP, I hope you stay as far away as you possibly can from this guy. I mean, make sure he does right by your kids, but this guy does not need to be in your life otherwise. It's time for you to find somebody your own age who's not looking to groom kids. This next story comes to us from Blue-Eyed Brunette. I don't like liars. Let's jump right in. This happened 5+ years ago, and it's still one of my proudest moments. I was dating this guy, Dan, going through a custody battle with his ex-girlfriend over their toddler. We worked at the same bar with this girl named Billie Jean. Billie Jean was an old friend of